Every year, someone in a group of friends or colleagues has a cardiac event. And for about 2 weeks, everyone around them gets serious. They book appointments, they cut the alcohol, they start going to bed earlier, and then life comes back. The urgency fades until the next episode. I have been a cardiologist for over 20 years. I have treated more than 10,000 patients, and the pattern I see more than any other is this. People who go through a cardiac scare or watch someone close to them go through one come to see me to get the stent or the prescription and walk back out in the exact same life that caused the problem. Not because they are careless, because nobody ever told them what exactly caused the heart problem to begin with. That is what this video is about. I am going to show you what most cardiology appointments miss, why people do everything right medically, still end up back in my office, and what the patients who never come back actually do differently. What I used to do and why I believed it. I used to believe that if I found the problem in your heart and fixed it medically, my job was done. You came in, I ran the tests, I found that blockage, I put in the stent, I wrote the prescription, I shook your hand, and I sent you on your way. That was cardiology. That was what I trained for 6 years to do. That model made complete sense. It is what every hospital in the world still runs on. You fix the medical problem and you move on to the next patient. And in the short term, it looked like it worked. People left feeling better, their numbers improved, the scan looked cleaner. From the outside, it was completely logical to believe the job was finished. What I missed was the reason the artery blocked in the first place, the stress the patients were under, the sleep they were not getting, the loneliness, the burnout, the foods they were eating at midnight because they had been working since 6 a.m. None of that was on my prescription pad. I was treating the artery and sending the person back to the life that had damaged it. The part that took me a long time to sit with was how many people I saw do everything right medically, take every tablet, follow every instruction, and still come back 6 months later with the same chest pain. And I kept calling that a medical problem. It was not a medical problem. It was a question I had never learned to ask, because once I started looking at what was actually happening in those patients' lives, the pattern I found was so consistent that I could not keep ignoring what the old position was actually doing. The assumption was simple: fix the artery, prescribe the right medication, and the patient's risk goes down. The logic held up on paper: better blood flow, lower cholesterol, controlled blood pressure. On every measurable marker, the treatment worked. But the patients who came back, the ones with new blockages, new symptoms, new scares, were almost always the same type of person. Chronically stressed, not sleeping, eating badly, working every hour, and nobody had ever asked them about any of it. They had gone home from their last appointment with a prescription and no plan for the thing that was still damaging their heart every single day. I was giving people a second chance at life and no instructions on what to do with it. The number of people I watch go back to the exact same life after a cardiac event because nobody ever helped them see that the life was the problem. And that is something I still think about. And the harder thing to admit is that I was one of those people who sent them back without asking. Not because I did not care, because I had never been trained to look there. And then I noticed something specific, a pattern that repeated itself so consistently across so many patients that I could not keep explaining it away. If this is landing for you, subscribe. Every week, I share what 20 years of cardiology and lifestyle medicine has actually taught me about keeping your heart healthy for the long term. The moment it broke, I had a patient come back to see me after a stent. On paper, everything was perfect. The artery was open, the blood was flowing, the medication was working, but sitting across from me, he looked exhausted. Not unwell in a clinical way, just completely worn down. And I asked him almost by accident how things were going at home. He looked at me like I had said something strange. Nobody had ever asked him that before. Once I started asking that question across my practice, I heard the same answer in different forms from patient after patient. High stress, no sleep, no time, no support. The stent had fixed the artery. Nobody had touched the life underneath it. And the people who eventually made real progress were the ones whose lives shifted, not just the ones whose scans improved. So the questions: when you last saw your doctor about your heart, were you asked anything about your stress levels, your sleep, or what your daily life looks like? Have you had a cardiac scare, a procedure, or a worrying result and walked out of the clinic with a prescription but no real sense of what caused it? Do you feel like you were doing what you were told to do but you still feel like your heart health is not actually improving. If you answer yes to two or more of those, the medical system has done part of its job and left the harder part untouched. You're not failing to get better. You are missing a conversation that nobody has had with you yet. Because once I understood that everything about how I practice had to change. What I now believe instead, I now believe that finding the blockage is just the start of the job and that the real work of cardiology is understanding the life that caused it. If you have been through a cardiac event, a scare, a procedure, or you have been told your numbers are moving in the wrong direction, the scan result is not the full picture. The full picture includes what is happening in your sleep, your stress, your relationships, and your daily habits. Without that picture, you are managing a symptom without addressing what is driving it. After working with thousands of patients through my Heart Reset program, the pattern is the same every time. The people who make real long term progress are not the ones who only fix the artery, they are the ones who change the life around. Sleep improves, stress comes down, food changes, and the cardiac risk markers follow every time. So stop accepting a normal scan result as a reason not to look deeper. A normal scan can still sit inside a life that is damaging your heart every day. Start asking yourself one question every week. Which of these is worse for me right now? Stress, sleep, or food? And pick that worst one. Take one small step towards it. That is where the real work begins. And there is one specific thing I now tell patients at the very start of our work together. Something that costs nothing and starts tonight. What I tell every patient now, starting today, chronic stress raises your cortisol. Raised cortisol raises your blood pressure. Raised blood pressure accelerates plaque buildup in your arteries. That is the chain. Better sleep interrupts it. A Mediterranean style diet cuts your risk by 50%. That is better than most medications. These are not soft suggestions, they are root causes finally being treated. Think about a car with an oil warning light. You can take it to the mechanic and the warning light will be fixed and drive away feeling like the problem is solved. But if you never put the oil back in the engine, the light's coming back on. The stent resets that warning light. Changing life puts the oil back in the engine. When patients start here, when they address the root causes and not just the scan results, they stop living in fear of the next event. They start feeling like their heart is a ticking clock. They start feeling like they actually have some control. That shift is in how they feel day to day is something a prescription alone has never produced. A lot of my patients do get a chance. My brother did not. And I am not going to waste it by handing them a prescription alone and pointing them at the door. So tonight, before you go to sleep, I want you to do one thing. It takes 2 minutes. It directly lowers your stress response, and your stress response, as you know, directly damages your heart. So sit quietly before you get into bed, not in front of your phone. Just sit. Think of 2 things from today that you are genuinely grateful for, not a list. 2 real things that actually mean something to you. And sit with that feeling for 30 seconds. Let it land. Take 3 slow, deep breaths before you close your eyes. That is it. I do this every single night. It costs nothing. And after a week, notice what happens to your sleep. Because better sleep is one of the most direct things you can do for your heart. I know that now. I wish I had known it sooner. The patients who stop coming back to my office are never the ones who just fixed the artery. They are the ones who finally understood what damaged it in the first place, and now you do too. If this resonated with you, the next video is one every senior executive needs to watch. I walk through 5 specific signs that your team is heading towards a cardiac event and what to do before it happens. It is on the end screen and in the description.